Awesome. Good morning. I want to thank everyone for attending the LACEAAA and LACEAA's virtual Asian American Pacific Heritage Day celebration. Our theme for this day is Embrace and Empower, uplifting the AAPI community. We want to remind you that this event is recorded and both our organizations plan on posting it on our respective social media websites. After this event, I invite you to check out LACEAA's YouTube channel for additional videos. My name is Eddie Yen. I am the president of the Los Angeles County Asian American Employees Association. I am joined by the city's AAPI Employee Association president, Annie Chow.
On behalf of the Los Angeles City Employees Asian American Association and our county counterparts, welcome to AAPI Month. We're excited to spend the morning highlighting the diversity of the AAPI community with cultural performances, embracing the history of AAPI in the city and county city employment, and looking back at the contributions AAPI members have made in government, and empowering each of us to use our voice as we continue to see discrimination and negativity towards the AAPI community.
In case people didn't know, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month is a celebration of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the United States. It's a rather broad term, and Asian Pacific encompasses all of the Asian continent, Pacific Islands, and Polynesia.
Like most commemorative months, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month originated with Congress. In 1977, separate resolutions by Senator Daniel Inouye and Representative Frank Horton failed. But in June 1978, Representative Frank Horton of New York introduced to the House Joint Resolution 1007, which was passed by the House and then the Senate and was signed by President Jimmy Carter, proclaiming the first 10 days in May of 1979 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. Presidents have subsequently passed annual proclamations for APA Heritage Week until Congress passed a law in 1992 to expand the observation to a month for 1990. Then in 1992, Congress passed a law which annually designated May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
The month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7th, 1843. And to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants.
Before we start our first performance, I want to acknowledge 3 of our community partners: Employee Club of California, the Asian Pacific Community Fund, and Asian American Advancing Justice LA. These organizations have been partners in both of our associations to develop programming for the community. This past year, during the pandemic, they have contributed to help the community as well.
The Employees Club of California provides benefits for state, local, and municipal government employees of California. The club provides discount entertainment benefits and strives to celebrate the work and lives of municipal government employees. Their official club store is located at 120 West 2nd Street, Los Angeles, California. This past year, the Employees Club of California, through its Club's Angels charity, donated over 2,500 items to city, county, and state retired employees. These items included masks, gloves, toilet paper, hand sanitizers, food, laundry detergent, and vitamins. We are fortunate to have today door prizes to pass out at the end of our program. These prizes are sponsored by our friends at the Employees Club of California. Annie, I don't know if you know this, but as an employee of the city and county of Los Angeles, you're actually able to sign up for a membership of the Employees Club, and you can apply this membership and receive discounts on many activities like amusement parks, museums, and movies. So we encourage people to check out their website, which we'll post at the end of the program. But before we talk about APCF, I do want to recognize, and the Honorable Mike Eng has joined us on this event, and I just wanted to recognize and acknowledge him. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
Hi, Mike. Nice to have you with us.
great to be with all of you. Hope to have lunch with each and every one of you in person very soon. My treat.
All right.
One of our other partner organization is the Asian Pacific Community Fund. The APCF was founded in 1990 and is proud to be the only Asian American Pacific Islander organization serving partners within the city and the county. And they have partners with us to help contribute to nonprofits serving other nonprofits. So it's a great organization to have your payroll deduction to benefit causes that help the API community. Thanks to the generosity of you, city and county employees, APCF has provided over $4.3 million in grants to over 150 API serving nonprofits. The LA City and County employees alone have donated nearly $2.5 million since 1992. This year, APCF is proud to have granted $90,000 to 14 small AAPI nonprofits. So we're really proud of the partnership that generous city and county employees have made to benefit causes that help our greater community.
To kick off our performance today, we are going to be showing a video from the performance group, The Immortals.
Hey, my name is Branson, and on behalf of the Immortals INS team, we want to wish you a happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Month to the Los Angeles County Asian American Employees Association and the Los Angeles City Employees Asian American Association.
That was a fantastic introduction or event, welcoming everyone. This is Truck Moore. I'll be serving as your MC today for our event. I am a longtime resident of Los Angeles County. I am a 17-year veteran of LA County. I've been practicing as an attorney for almost 18, 19 years now. So I'm elated to be able to assist in emceeing this event for today. Before we move on with our program, I wanted to recognize that our Undersheriff of Los Angeles County, Tim Murakami, is on. We appreciate you joining us today, and we have a welcome message that everyone will be viewing very shortly. As we move forward with our program, we'd like to go ahead and preview messages from our elected officials from the LA City and LA County area. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. My name is Councilmember John Lee, proud council member of the 12th District here in the city of Los Angeles, and I am so honored to be here to mark this occasion where we are truly recognizing the important history and contributions of the AAPI community. You know, this year's theme for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month is Unite, Empower, and Rise. Words that speak to our past experience, what we've recently gone through, and also what's going to propel us to move forward. This year's celebration is especially important, as you all know, because it's been an increased year of attacks and hatred against the AAPI community. As we all know, it's been an extremely year for all of us, being scapegoated for the COVID-19 epidemic. But through it all, I have witnessed just great, incredible unity amongst different communities in the midst of all of these challenges, you know, and that gives me hope that we are moving towards greater empowerment, and that we continue as all of us continue to demand change, to demand that our voices are heard and that our voices are truly represented. So thank you so much for joining us. Growing up, I remember that feeling, that need to emphasize my Americanness, to really feel accepted amongst the other people. You know, I always say the love of my Korean heritage, love of my Korean culture, does no way diminish my love for this country or make me any less American. You know, the AAPI community makes our nation stronger. It's part of our American history. It's understanding that our nation is incomplete without the stories of the AAPI community being shared. Our diverse cultures, languages, and histories that enrich our diverse society need to be heard. And so, just again, I hope you enjoyed today. Don't forget to check out the other events that are happening this month at culturela.org. I am proud to be hosting later on this month a screening of the Academy Award nominated movie Minari, where we're going to be able to talk with the cast, which is about the Asian American experience here in the United States. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, everyone.
Good afternoon and happy AAPI Heritage Month. I'm Hilda Solis, Chair of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, and I proudly represent the 1st District, which includes a large segment of the county's Asian Pacific Islander population. I'm so honored to be here virtually to join in the celebration of Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I want to thank the Los Angeles County Asian American Employee Association for organizing this event. The 1st Supervisorial District is home to many inspiring and talented individuals of Asian and Pacific Islander descent, many of whom are longtime partners of our office and public servants dedicated to our communities. I've had the honor of representing Chinatown, Little Tokyo, historic Filipino town, as well as large swaths of the San Gabriel Valley for many, many years. and it pains me to think that our communities are being attacked by anti-Asian hate acts and crime. Unfortunately, as we celebrate Pacific Island Heritage Month, we know that these attacks are not new. That's why it's important to elevate and recognize the many inspiring individuals of API descent who work in the County of Los Angeles. It is why we must call out bigotry, whether big or small, and reaffirm our commitment to our API brothers and sisters. And as we celebrate the Heritage Month, let us recommit to protecting one another and to center our voices for the most vulnerable. Right now, our API elders are scared to go for a walk, and that's totally unacceptable to me. That's why, at my direction, the county is expanding our anti-hate program to accurately report and track hate incidents, and to also get survivors of hate the counseling and services that they truly deserve. I encourage anyone who has witnessed or experienced an act of hate to report to our 211 hotline and visit laversushate.org. Thank you and take care.
Hi, I'm Holly Mitchell, LA County Supervisor representing the 2nd District, and I'm thrilled to join with my fellow board members in uplifting Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and the immense contributions of the LA County Asian American Employees Association. I view this year's theme, Embrace and Empower, Uplifting the Asian Community, as a call to action for all of us to stand together and to commit to ending hate and creating an inclusive and thriving LA County. I'm proud to be part of the county family and work alongside each and every one of you. Thank you and have a wonderful celebration.
I'm LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl. You know, LA is home to well over 1 million people of Asian and Asian Pacific Islander descent, and I am very happy to join LA County's Asian American Employees Association in marking Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I'm also very proud that my district, the mighty 3rd District of LA County, is home to both Sawtell Japantown and Thai Town. Thank you for organizing today's event and adding to this very important month-long recognition that lifts up the rich contributions Asian Pacific Americans make to LA County and to this country. Enjoy.
This is LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn. I am proud that LA County continues to acknowledge and celebrate AAPI Heritage Month. And I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the members of the LA County Asian American Employees Association and thank you for your service to the residents of Los Angeles County. I've been deeply disturbed by the senseless hate and violence perpetrated against the AAPI community this past year. I've heard from friends and constituents who are scared to leave their homes and are afraid for their families. I've also been moved by the folks that stood up and spoke out against this racism and are demanding action. I want you to know that I have your back, and I will continue to do everything in my power to make sure that you not only are safe, but you feel safe in your communities. Thank you for your continued service and commitment to the people of Los Angeles County. You contribute so much to our communities, and we are better because of you.
Hi, I'm Los Angeles County Supervisor Kathryn Barger. It's a privilege to join the Asian American Employees Association in celebration of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. LA County is committed to celebrate our AAPI employees, thank them for their contributions, and stand in solidarity with them. Our Board of Supervisors was proud to recognize AAPI Heritage Month and to implement anti-hate intervention training for county employees. It's deeply important that our employees and residents know we honor them and care about their well-being. Los Angeles County is stronger and more vibrant because of our talented, hardworking, and creative AAPI employees. I wish you a very happy AAPI Heritage Month, which I hope is filled with well-deserved recognition of who you are and all the amazing work you've done.
Welcome Los Angeles County and city employees and residents of LA County and our guest speakers at today's Embrace and Empower Uplifting AAPI Communities event. This is Undersheriff Tim Murakami with the LA County Sheriff's Department. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, and we celebrate and recognize the contributions and influence of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to the history, culture, and achievements of the LA County family and nationally. As a Japanese American serving with the LA County Sheriff's Department since 1979, I've seen LA County grow in many wonderful ways due to the contributions of the AAPI residents and our AAPI workforce. On behalf of the Sheriff's Department, I want all of our AAPI residents to know the Sheriff's Department stands with you, united against racism and the rise of anti-AAPI sentiment and hate. We are here and always ready to help you, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us. And from my own personal experience, hate is basically a community problem. My family was incarcerated during World War II. They were all U.S. citizens. And upon their release, they actually had nothing, but they were embraced by the African American community. So that serves as an example of all people working together to stand up and rise up against racism and hate. But thank you.
We've also got a message from Los Angeles County's Assessor that we'll be putting on screen shortly.
Hi, I'm Los Angeles County Assessor Jeff Prang. I want to thank the Los Angeles County and City Asian American Employees Associations for organizing this virtual celebration for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Los Angeles has some of the largest Asian enclaves outside of Asia, and these communities and neighborhoods have played a critical role in shaping our region. As we continue to address racism and all other forms of hate, let us look toward the resilience of our AAPI communities and work together to send a message that hate in any form and against anyone will not be tolerated in Los Angeles. I hope you have a great event, and thank you for all your hard work and dedication to the county and the city of Los Angeles. Happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Thank you. On behalf of the County and City Employees Associations, we want to thank our elected leaders and our county leaders in sharing these wonderful messages to us and to the community and to the LA County and LA City area. We know that these leaders stand with us in the API community in celebration with us and in solidarity and strength with us. With that said, we're going to go ahead and move to our keynote speaker. Elizabeth, I turn it to you.
Thank you, Truck. Hello, everyone. We are so honored to present to you today Michael Wu. At the end of his presentation, we will have a short Q&A session. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask our keynote speaker, please type it in the chat box. Michael Wu was the first Asian American and the first trained urban planner elected to the Los Angeles City Council. He gave up his city council seat in '93 to join the field of 24 candidates running for mayor of LA, eventually receiving 46% of the citywide vote in the June '93 runoff election. Last year, Wu was recognized as a planning pioneer by the California chapter of the American Planning Association. Cal Poly Pomona just awarded him an emeritus title, recognizing his 10 years as dean of their College of Environmental Design. He recently finished teaching a Cal Poly Pomona seminar on housing insecurity and social justice, and has just started teaching another course on leading a collaborative city for USC's Executive Master of Urban Planning program. Please welcome our wonderful speaker today, Michael Wu.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a great honor to be here, and I enjoyed watching the videos before me, and especially the video version of the lion dance. But I can assure you, I'm unrecorded and I'm very much alive here with this presentation this morning. I'd like to thank all of the Asian American city employees and county employees who are with us in the audience, because you play an essential part in helping city government, county government, local government in general make a difference for so many people. So thank you so much for your service. Every year, Asian Pacific Heritage Month is recognized, but this year is marked by an unusual level of urgency and even crisis. I'm referring to the current atmosphere in which anti-Asian violence has become so prevalent, especially targeting women, seniors, and others who are physically vulnerable. In my own experience, I grew up in the Crenshaw district. Our family was one of the first Chinese families to move to Monterey Park in the 1960s. And I don't remember encountering a lot of direct anti-Asian sentiment as I was growing up. But in Monterey Park, as the immigrant population, the Chinese population, Southeast Asian population grew, there was a rising level of sentiment against signs in languages other than English showing up in front of businesses. So there were some signs of an escalating level of anti-Asian sentiment in the community. But I have to say that in my own experience, I didn't really encounter anti-Asian racism very much until I went into politics. That is, when I started running for public office and asking for votes in a very diverse constituency. And that woke me up, frankly. It made me more aware than I was before about the reservoir of resentment and even hate that can develop right here in a diverse community such as Southern California. Now, the recent shootings in Atlanta, as far as I'm concerned, amplified a general atmosphere of random violence against Asian Americans around the country. Last year, I started to notice something was going on. Like many of you, I felt upset about the comments that President Trump made referring to a China virus, making jokes about Kung flu. In response to that, some friends encouraged me to try something I hadn't done before, which was to organize an online petition against Asian American racism. So I put together an online petition with the headline, "President Trump, your Kung flu joke was offensive, pathetic, and racist." We put these words out there, not really sure of what was going to happen. And frankly, I was shocked that within a few days, there was so much momentum and online attention to this petition. We gathered over 26,000 signatures, not only Asian Americans, actually from a very diverse audience, and from people all over the country, that was telling me that there was a real hunger for somebody to do something against the rising tide of anti-Asian racism. During 2020, over the course of the year, anti-Asian hate crimes went up 150% nationally. That's amazing, 150% increase. At the same time, during 2020, when hate crimes overall went down by 7%. So that statistic really makes it clear there's something very disturbing going on in the country. You may have seen another survey that was released just last week. The question was asked to a general audience, can you identify a prominent Asian American? And amazingly, 42% of all Americans cannot name a single prominent Asian American. What does that say, not only about the lack of Asian American role models, but the continuing invisibility of our population? And even more astounding, in that same survey, of those Americans who could name a prominent Asian American, 11% named Jackie Chan, who actually lives in Hong Kong. 9% of the respondents named Bruce Lee. And as you may know, Bruce Lee passed away in 1973. So this really underlines to me the invisibility that we need to deal with. Now, last year, there were some promising occurrences, especially in terms of the rising level of Asian American participation in politics. Nationally, from 2016 to 2020, Asian American voter participation increased by 39%. That's between 2016 and 2020. That's more than any other racial group in the United States. So that's very remarkable. In Georgia, the increase in Asian American voter participation was 84%. In Nevada, the increase in Asian American voter participation was 65%. And it wasn't only Democrats. Here in California, Asian American voters made a big difference, electing 2 Asian American new members of Congress in Southern California. So this is it's a promising trend to see more and more Asian American interest in politics, and it's sending a signal to both Democrats and Republicans that in order to appeal to this rising tide of voter interest, they need to do more for Asian Americans. And as you know, in New York and in Boston, there are Asian Americans who are in the leading ranks of the candidates running for mayor of those 2 cities. So that's very promising as well. Now, what can be done? The first thing I have to say is there's no single solution. It's going to take a lot of work starting now, and it's going to take many years to deal with this deeply rooted anti-Asian racism in the population. It's promising that President Biden signed a new law against anti-Asian racism, and it makes such a difference to have a leader at the top of the country setting the right tone. Beyond that, though, what else can be done? Individuals are buying pepper spray. Pepper spray sales are way up, but I don't think that's enough by itself. There are other kinds of short-term solutions that have been proposed, including improving the systems for reporting hate crimes, training for bystanders, sensitizing law enforcement and the news media to anti-Asian racism and violence. I think that no matter where you are, if you work for the LA Department of Water and Power, if you work for the Sheriff's Department, if you work for any government agency, or whether you are a pharmacist, a nurse, a grocery store clerk, everybody needs to figure out what can you do where you are to make a difference. For my part, I wanted to mention a new project that I think could be very promising. After the killings in Atlanta a few months ago, the LA Times ran 2 stories within about 10 days of each other, each of which mentioned a very little known incident in the history of Los Angeles. I'm referring to the massacre of 18 Chinese in 1871. There was the outgrowth of a gunfight between 2 Chinese in the old Chinatown of Los Angeles. But when word went out that a white man had been killed by a gun shot by a Chinese, a mob of about 500 Angelenos convened on Old Chinatown, and 18 ethnic Chinese men and boys were shot or hanged. This was probably the largest single anti-Asian case of violence in the history of the United States, and it's the largest single massacre of any kind in the history of LA. But it is very little known. As I was growing up in LA, I never heard about it. And there is no physical memorial to educate the public about this, except for a small metal plaque in the sidewalk on the 400 block of North Los Angeles Street near El Pueblo and Olvera Street. So we need to do something about this, because unless we educate people about the evils of the past, as the saying goes, we may be doomed for past evils to be repeated. So I hope that we can join together to create a new memorial, something that will be highly visible, something that will be highly accessible, and of course, protected against vandalism, which could be something that could send an important message. It would go on about not forgetting the past and striving for a better future. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mike. That was wonderful. And thank you for bringing and informing us of all these data points and numbers, which are very important, which are actual facts. And it's such a wonderful and refreshing reminder of history as well, especially the monument that you are currently working on. It's a new project. Can you talk a little bit more about that for us? How can we help and support that initiative, you know, as myself, as a person or county employee?
The process is just beginning. Mayor Garcetti has publicly endorsed the idea of a new memorial to the 1871 massacre, and his chief design officer is now organizing a process that will begin, we hope, in the next few weeks with an open meeting, a community meeting, to hear from people in the community. There will be a process for settling on a location. As I said, I think it's essential that the new memorial needs to be in a location that is highly visible, very accessible, and safe from vandalism. There are several potential sites, some of them on city property, some of them on county property, where it may be appropriate, somewhere between Union Station, North Los Angeles Street, El Pueblo, somewhere around there, because that's the old Chinatown was where Union Station currently stands. And the places where the killings actually happen are in various spots ranging from North Los Angeles Street, around where Father Sarah Park is located, and going all the way up to where Fort Moore is located a few blocks away. So there will be a selection of a site. Then the mayor's office is talking about a design competition or a design challenge. I'm hoping that people will contribute ideas that could produce something like the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, or maybe something that would involve light or sculpture, like the street lights on Wilshire Boulevard in front of LACMA, which, you know, everybody wants to go to take a selfie. I think there are ways to use a site that would call attention and that people would want to go and see. So this is going to take a while. While we're hoping there will be some public funds from either the county or the city or both, there probably will also be a need for private fundraising to do this the right way. So that's how the process will work.
Well, thank you for sharing the process, Mike. There are two questions to it. What can the county, if you can briefly describe, as the county administration or the board can be part of this and help in this initiative? And then, you know, how do people get involved? Is there a website to it, or, you know, that you can share later? Maybe we can share with our audiences as well.
Okay, in terms of the county, yes, I think there is a role for the county. In fact, I've been talking to staff at Supervisor Solis's office about potential sites on county land. Another potential involvement from the county has to do with Metro, because there may be a site, for example, in front of Union Station, or perhaps in one of the patios at Union Station, that would be seen by thousands of people walking by every day. So there are some possibilities that way. There isn't yet a website, but here's what I suggest. Let me share the contact information with both the LA City Asian employees and the LA County Asian American employees groups, so that hopefully in the next few weeks, as the first community meetings organized, you could help to share this with your members so they could get involved in the process. So unfortunately, there's nobody I can point you to right now, but I think there will be in the next few weeks.
Well, it's still early in the process, it seems like. So we are glad to be involved or be notified at the beginning of this whole project. It's wonderful. And we have other questions. So as in voting, you mentioned how the numbers are and how staggering. I mean, it's very pleasing to hear that the numbers went up so much and increased, but yet we're still very low down there. So how important is it that we actually vote, and that people in LA County vote, and how does that affect our long-term policies and regulations? And how do you see that coming from the political side?
Well, Elizabeth, in theory, a democracy means that the government will respond when people vote, especially when
I'm
Asian
sorry,
American...
did you say in theory?
Yes, I said in theory because it doesn't always work that way. But in theory, in a democratic system, the elected officials will pay attention, especially to groups that vote. And so that's why Asian Americans not only registering, but actually turning out to vote ought to then lead to the next stage, which is then making demands on the elected officials, the people who got elected, to do this or that, or produce a list of 5 things that are needed. For example, that might have to do with recruiting Asian Americans to be hired by a sheriff's department or a police department, or it may lead to doing something, for example, relating to this new memorial or something else. Politicians won't necessarily invent something to do if a community doesn't say this is what we want. So it's important for leaders of organizations to get together to agree on things to ask for after the election. So one thing is to get voters to actually show up for an election, but then beyond that, it's not enough. Even though voting is extremely important, that is not enough by itself, because if you don't start asking for things after the election, then it's easy to then get ignored again. So that's how I would describe it. Democracy is only a theory unless people make it work by voting and then asking for things after the election.
So what I'm hearing is that being involved and being educated and being updated on the current, doings of the city or county or any government is what we need to be, and it's our responsibility. Thank you. Thank you. We have some other questions, such as sharing a massacre, about the article that you mentioned regarding the massacre, if that could be shared. I'm sure you could do that and for us later. Yes. And what opportunities are there to increase Asian American voter strength in blocks and communities in the city or county? I think you've already kind of mentioned that part, as a person, I think just sharing your passion and the importance of it from person to person, is it family or friends or, your coworkers, is very important to push that through. And thank you for everything. If there's anything else you want to finish on a note or anything,
sure.
Or add.
Elizabeth, one more thing. I was going to mention a quotation, and in my haste I passed over it, but I think if you'll give me a minute, let me read something to you. I just finished reading a really excellent book about the history of vigilante justice in Los Angeles. Now, of course, none of us on this Zoom call were alive when this was happening, but in the 19th century, LA was like a Wild West town. In 1871, the year of the massacre, there were only 5,000 people living in Los Angeles, of whom about 200 were ethnic Chinese. But there wasn't a functioning sheriff's department or police department the way there is now, which is why mobs and vigilantes basically enforced what they thought was justice. But the author of a book called Eternity Street, which I can recommend to you, this author, Professor John MacFarlane, wrote a sentence in his introduction that has been resonating in my mind ever since I read it. So let me read it to you because I think it says a lot. Now remember, this book is about the whole history of vigilante justice in LA in the 19th century. But in his introduction, he writes this sentence, quote, America is a first world country with a third world violence problem, unquote. Now, those are very powerful words, but I think they're very true. And what I would add to this is that if America is a first world country with a third world violence problem, if you add to the violence racism, the epidemic of racism, that is an extremely toxic combination. And we only need the reminder of the killings in Atlanta to understand that. So again, as I said, there's literally no magic bullet. There's no single solution to this. It's going to take a lot to change it. But what this sentence tells me is the problems we're dealing with, the reasons why we have to have Asian Pacific Heritage Month is that it's going to take a lot of work to change people's minds that will eventually counteract racism and violence.
Thank you for that, Mike. And you're absolutely right. This is one step at a time that we take towards what we are aiming for, you know, with all this anti-racism stuff. And thank you for being here with us today. I think there are many questions of how to get into policy, how to become, you know, elected official. These are the questions. So we'll have you back as a distinguished speaker, and hopefully you could join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Fantastic. Michael, again, thank you so much. I mean, with your influence in local politics as an educator to students in the region, as well as your work as an urban planner, you've clearly had a very distinguished hand in shaping where the Los Angeles region is now. We're now going to move forward with our program, and we're going to look at a historical timeline of what Asians in America have experienced. It's really important to understand that even though we've come quite a long way and that we still have a lot more to go, it's very important to know what we have been able to overcome. So with that, Matt, go ahead with the timeline.
I'd like to next introduce our event where we will be speaking with former presidents of LACEAAA and LACEAAA. Today we have 4 members of former presidents of our organizations. I'll introduce our panelists from the LACEAAA. First, we have Philip Au, president of LACEAAA back in 1981, and he was with LACEAAA for 29 years. He's retired from the Chief Administration Office. He was a program analyst 3 and worked in environmental health. He is a survivor of Burkitt's lymphoma since June 2014. In 2016, he became a patient and family outreach volunteer for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to help those who are battling a blood cancer. We also have Henry Yee, past president and vice president. He was in LACEAAA for 20 years. He was retired. He retired as a head of contracts unit at the Sheriff's Department. We also have Irene Ng Hamada. She served as correspondence secretary, second VP, and president from 2007-2010. She was in LACEAAA for 15 years, retired as a manager overseeing administrative support in areas of budget, purchasing, emergency preparedness, and facility service for LA Superior Court. She is currently enjoying retirement as a ticket taker for the at the happiest place on earth. And for those who don't know where that is, it's Disneyland. Lastly, we have Jackie T. Guevara. She was a president of LACEAAA from 2012 to 2017. She's been a member of LACEAAA since 2007. She still works at the county right now. She's the only non-retired person on the panel. She's currently the executive director of the Los Angeles County Quality and Productivity Commission, which marks 40 years of service from 1981 to 2021 to promote quality, efficiency, productivity, and innovation in county operations and services.
Thanks, Eddie. My name is Janice Chang Yu. I'm with the city, and I'm here to introduce the LA City Employees Asian American Association panelists for today. First, our first panelist is Les Hamasaki. He is the LACEAAA founder and president of LACEAAA in 1972. He retired as a city urban planner. And secondly, we have James Okazaki, who was president of LACEAAA in 1984 and also served as vice president for many years in the 80s and retired in 2006 as a chief of transportation programs at the LA Department of Transportation. We have Beverly Anderson. She worked for the city of LA for 24 years in the field of management and human resources. She was president of LACEAAA in 1991, 92, 95, and 96, and served as VP several times as well, and corresponding secretary. Beverly retired from the police department as a senior personnel analyst in 2010. And we also have Dorothy Tamashiro, who was LACEAAA president in 1997 and 98, and also served as VP and corresponding secretary. Dorothy started a city service with Recreation and Parks as a clerk typist and ended her career at the controller's office, retiring as a fiscal systems specialist. Dorothy is currently a member of the board of directors for the Chinese American Museum, which is part of the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument. And we are so honored to have all of our panelists here today. And I know we are so inspired by all of you. And we just have a few questions that we would like to have you share your stories with our members and our leaders of our board to help us propel through the future and to learn from what you learned from in the past. Eddie, do you want to take the first question?
Sure. And so we'll direct these questions, the first questions, to really the founders and people who are in the early years of the organizations. I'm going to direct my first question to Phil Au. Phil, why was LACEAAA created, and was job or promotion opportunities for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, was that an issue that contributed to the contribution of the organizations? Phil, you're muted.
Thank you, Eddie, for asking that question. I just wanted to give you background information on the association. When I joined the association in the 70s, at that time, my mentors were Ed Lee and Yuneo Yamamoto. They were the founders of the LA County Asian American Employees Association, and they provided a lot of training to me and provided advice and also encouraged me to become a board member, which I did. And through the years, I did involved with various functions in the association. As I learned and grew, I became more involved because of their influence as mentors. Basically, the network and communication with members was a major area of concern and that we needed to work on. We shared our information, we got together in meetings and did planning and tried to strengthen the association by greater outreach. We needed to reach out and get the word out that there is an association and it was there to help them should they have issues with jobs, sexual harassment, grievances, so that they knew that there was an organization that would help them and assist them during this period of time. We had an opportunity to meet with the LA City Employees Association for AAPI Heritage Month several times in the past as well as currently. And I think one of the big main things that have come about because of our association's relationship with the city and county is that we learn from one another. We develop bonds that are still present today, and this Zoom meeting today illustrates that with the speaker Mike's excellent keynote speak, and to give us further details into why we're here to help county employees and help the community in our activities. And I just want to thank you for this, giving me this opportunity today to present bits of information concerning the history of our association. So it's still viable since the early 70s to the present, and with Eddie and involvement and Elizabeth and the board members, I just wish them continued success in their efforts to make the county's Asian American Association even better and greater than for the community and also for the organization that they represent, people, the employees that they represent in the county.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. I want to pose the same question to our City Employees Association founder, Les Hamasaki. What was the atmosphere like in the early 1970s? Why did you create found LACEAAA? If you can briefly talk about that. Was it because of job or promotional opportunities? Is it the same what Phil was saying? If you can talk briefly about that.
In general, thank you very much. During that period of time, we had in the planning department, we had one Japanese American that was weren't able to become one of the planning associates because of his language problem. And just to give you a background, it was during the time when Tom Bradley became the mayor of Los Angeles, and one of the guys that was in the Tom Bradley's organization, Matsumori Kojima, really was the one that instigated us to organize the LACEAAA. And basically his background was that he was interned in Chicago at that time, and became a very important individual to, for racial justice. And so that's how we really got together in terms of the organization in '72. And I really I say that Tom Bradley for 20 years, that was the mayor of Los Angeles, was a really background in terms of us getting together. He brought them a really multicultural city when you had the Blacks and the Hispanics as well as the Asians together, and also the various communities brought together. So when you look at Tom Bradley at that era, he created a multicultural city that transformed into what I call the multicultural state of California, when we had Villaraigosa as part of the mayor at that period of time. So from my background, it's really the political side that really got us involved with the Asian American Affirmative Action Association. And I'm really happy to see the organization is still operating for 50 years. That's incredible. I'm going to be 83, so I've seen it all, and hopefully we can still continue the effort that your group is following out. And I think there's an opportunity, because my thinking is the Asian Americans really looking at, for Los Angeles as a planner, is the model cities of the world when you look at it. And the Asia Pacific century is the largest economic century in the history of mankind, when you have the Japanese, Koreans, and Filipinos, and Chinese, and all of these other Asian groups together. It's going to be an economic power. It used to be New York, the economic center for the U.S., and now it's transferring to Los Angeles and the city, the state of California as an economic power. So I think when you look at the young people, the Asians, you have a high percentage of these universities in the technical area, and that's where the whole transition is into the media as well as the technical area. And so I see, when you look at the future as a planner, the whites have really reduced in terms of number by 2050, and it'll be just part of a minority group. And when you see the Asians coming up with the Hispanics and the African Americans, they'll becoming a major power in the future. And that's why you have the really problems that we're facing today with Trump has created in terms of the divisiveness and all of those things that are trying to discourage minorities to be part of the of the voting role. So from that standpoint, I think there's a future. What I see all the people here talking about the future and what they can be part of, I think it's an amazing future in the 21st century for the Asian Americans. So thank you for inviting me and sharing some of my ideas and thoughts.
Thank you, Les. And I think you brought some amazing points. And, I didn't even know that about Tom Bradley. And someone even mentioned in the chat that their mother worked for him for 8 years. And that's Timothy Young's mother, Hazel Young. And but I think those are all histories that, our organizations, we want to bring that out, right? We want to share that with our members, and also our community. And those are all things that we should learn about. And it really, it's great for you to mention that. I want to now direct this question to a couple of our LACEAA and LACEAAA panelists. I'm going to direct this to Irene first. Irene Hamada, why did you join the organization, and what made you decide to become president? And you're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. You know, Eddie, my tenure with the county's Asian Association was about community social services. You know, I was a late learner of Asian social services, outreach programs, and other Asian American associations. Now get this. I started with the county in 1968, and this was about the same time LA County Asian American Employees Association started, as Phil mentioned. However, I didn't learn of this association until 28 years later. That's kind of sad, you know. So I was invited to a meet and greet reception, and there I met amazing people from all over the county family, especially Phil Au. He took me around the room and introduced me to a lot of people. When I became a member, I attended fundraisers and learned of the many Asian community social services organizations out there, as well as the many county Asian American Association. All of this I did not know my entire county, you know, the start of my county career. So when I became president, I wanted to bring this awareness of these organizations to our association, the county, and to other Asian associations. My vice presidents at the time, Steve Kawamura and Jackie Guevara, shared my vision. Steve at the time was the CAO's legislative liaison to Sacramento. He was very passionate on community outreach programs, especially on the Asian Pacific Community Fund, which Annie spoke about earlier. Steve invited APCF to the monthly meetings of the county's Asian American organizations. APCF made their presentations on the many nonprofit organizations they help, such as the Asian Youth Center, Little Tokyo Service Center, and Asian for Miracle Merrill Match. In highlighting APCF and helping increase their charitable giving circle, APCF awarded LACAAEA with their 2008 Community Leadership Award. I bet you, Eddie, I bet you didn't know about this. Further, we held our first and second Heritage Day event in 2000 and 2001. And then for some reasons, I can't remember why we stopped. However, Jackie Guevara, she brought it back in 2007. She brought awareness each year at the Grand Park with many Asian social services organizations participating to discuss available health and wellness programs, as well as supporting other Asian associations with membership recruitment. Jackie took awareness further by highlighting the differences of the Asian community, the difference in Asian community that Les just spoke about. And she brought the awareness that we have different music, dance, fashion, and of course, food. For me, I hope my tenure as president from 2007 to 2010 brought awareness much sooner than later for many Asian Americans. And I'm very proud of Eddie taking the association to another level of social consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. And yeah, APCF is a great partner, and we really try to highlight them as well. And I just wanted to say really quick with Les and what Irene was saying too, it's so important that the history is a history of collaboration. You know, we are not in this alone. And we still have, and we've rebuilt, you know, I don't know if it has been this way over the years, but we've rebuilt a relationship with all of the qualified minority organizations in the city, the LA Association of Black Personnel and the Chicano Association as well. And we have a great relationship, and it's it's a symbiotic relationship, and we know we need each other. And we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to try to move this along a little bit, but I wanted to give all of our panelists a chance to speak. So really briefly, Dorothy, if you could talk a little bit about why you joined LACEAAA and what made you decide to become president. Oh, Dorothy, you're on mute.
Thank you for inviting me. I want to say, like Irene, I didn't know about the Asian Association when I first started my city service in 1972. It wasn't until the 80s when Tommy Hahn, who was president, invited me in because we had known each other for a long time. Once I got in, I realized the importance of the association as far as educating our employees for promotions, and also, you know, the glass ceiling that we had in those days. Today it's a little bit better, but it still could be better. My tenure, what I tried to do was work with the county, the state, and the federal, and did brown bag lunches to educate our employees about what was going on in the government. We had speakers from the federal government who was, forgot her name, but she was in charge of the Department of Justice. John Wang, who was from the federal, became the Information Technology General Manager, worked very closely with us. But with working with them and having these monthly lunch meetings, just to educate our members and to do outreach, we challenge our members to invite others to come in, because there are so many Asians out there, Asian employees in the city, that weren't interested in the Asian Association. They didn't feel they needed it, but they failed to remember how they got their jobs and how we fought for, you know, to break some of that glass ceiling. I applaud you today for continuing. I think with your social media, you're going to be able to reach out to more of the employees and get more members. Like I told Ed today, I encourage him to reach out to my son who is with the county to get involved, because I think he can be an asset one day. But thank you for inviting me, and good luck to you.
Thanks, Dorothy. And yes, once you mentioned that your son was a part of the county family, I knew immediately, in not just directly reaching out to him, but I'm gonna have to get you involved. And basically, I'm sure that would be much more encouraging than just having my voice involved. So thank you very much, Dorothy. So I have a question. I'm going to direct this to one of our county panelists, Henry Yee. What are some challenges that AAPI employees have had in getting hired and then promoted in the county? And just want to know a little bit about your experiences, what you could share about that.
Well, I think that we look at job specs, we look at the application, and then we write our resumes to fit that. So that means that you're competing with all of the other candidates for that one job. What I did differently was I applied for one job in the county, and that was a student worker, way back. So in my 40 years of being a county employee, I went to different departments. I got invited by the different departments to join the departments, and I moved up that way. I did that because I wanted to be different, and I wanted to show that I'm interested. I'm interested in what you're doing, and therefore they became interested in what I wanted to do. So they told me about the jobs that I would be interested in or I could fit in. So I said, okay, let's take a look at these jobs, and they said, here, apply for this. Well, I looked at the job specs, and when I filled it out, I noticed that I didn't fit. So they said, you know what, why don't we rewrite the job for you? And that's how I started to move up. I moved up because I was interested. I had done my networking. I understood what the job was, and I was very interested in those jobs. So moving up became easy for me. And I did that I moved about every 3 years I went to a new job and I got invited. When I retired, I got invited again. So it helped me along the way.
Thank you, Henry. I'm going to ask really briefly, Beverly, if you can talk a little bit about, or during your time, not only as leader of LACEAAA, but in your career, what were some challenges that you saw that AAPI employees had in getting hired and then promoted in the city?
Well, thank you again for inviting me to be on this panel. I think during my tenure there's basically always been discrimination, but when I was there, we worked a lot with various other ethnic organizations, the other affirmative action associations. We collaborated with the state and the county Asian American associations. We put on workshops, promotional workshops, interviewing workshops. We had a workshop about breaking the glass ceiling, which was that was the things we were facing at the time. We worked a lot on making sure that the interview questions, when people went for interviews, were job related, that they didn't ask questions that had nothing to do with the job. I remember actually going to an interview in our general services department, and one of the questions they asked me was, when was the last time you tuned up a car? You know, that had nothing to do with the job. I didn't get that job, and I guess thank goodness I didn't. But things were the same, yet they were different. And I just have to really say, I'm really thankful that I got involved with our organization. I was brought to a meeting, and there were several meetings, and I had recently joined the city and I didn't really know anyone. So it was a way to get involved. It was a way to meet people. And as one of our former presidents had told me, you need to network. And that was just so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. So I want to turn a question to Jackie. You know, Jackie preceded me as president of LACEAAA, and you know, people should know also, you know, her position right now as the executive director of Quality Productivity Commission is really important to the county. I could tell you that she's helped the Office of the Assessor in identifying additional funds to help in promoting and building like some type of a progressive system so that we could continue to build public service that we provide to the community. But Jackie, I'd like to pose the similar question or same question as we asked Henry, which is, you know, what are some challenges that you faced as an AAPI employee? And you know, let us know a little bit about the challenges and kind of how you have overcome some of those obstacles.
Thank you, Eddie. First of all, thank you so much for having me be part of this panel. I'm very, very privileged to be included in this illustrious group. Irene, Phil, and Henry were all role models to me, especially when I first joined the organization, and they continue to be. So I am very, very grateful to be part of this panel and be among the ranks. I've been with the county 24 years. I started with the auditor controller and worked for them for 21 of those 24 years before moving on to the Board of Supervisors and running the Quality and Productivity Commission. And when I was an auditor controller in the accounting division, I was responsible for compiling the county's financial statements. And I supervise a lot of Asians in the accounting division. And what I found is that a lot of them are very timid. They're very qualified. They're very good at what they do, but they're afraid to talk to their superiors. They don't network as much as they should. outside of work. And I've found that that has been very beneficial to me. Being part of the AAEA allowed me to network with all these different organizations, like the Hispanic Managers Association, the African American Employees Association, the Cambodian Employees Association, Chinese Employees Association, all the other organizations in the county. And that helped me to network and build my group and contacts, including department heads. And so as I moved along in my county career, that actually helped me. It was easy to talk about those experiences. I had those experiences to share during the interviews. And so you really need to network and open yourself to those opportunities. And I feel sometimes that we don't, as a culture, we don't take advantage of those opportunities that are really out there and very easy to be part of. And we need to encourage that. There is also sometimes language barriers. It's some people who have just immigrated, for example, have difficulty maybe expressing themselves clearly. And I just read an article recently that the majority of Asian American adults in the United States are foreign born, and that could have, that could be part of the reason. As I myself, though, although I wasn't foreign born, I was foreign raised. I grew up in the Philippines until I was 11 years old. And so I speak that language at home to this day, but that didn't stop me from networking, from not being afraid to communicate with the people above me, as well as my peers. And you need to go beyond those concerns, really, personally, to do well and to move up. And so we need to encourage that, I think, especially the new employees, new Asian and API employees coming into the county, is to set that example. And I know that Henry and Mary and Phil did that for me. Phil took Irene around the room, Irene did the same thing to me. At every event that we went to, Irene took me around the room and introduced me to different people. And I'm always be grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing that, and for Beverly and Henry, such really great points that are still, in some ways, unfortunately relevant today. You know, the glass ceiling, and the importance of networking, and especially these days when we're so disconnected from one another. You know, I hope those who have joined us, you know, LACEAAA these events is a way for you to keep connected to your employees. And I want to bring our biggest question, or our last question, to, sorry about that, to James Okazaki. What would you recommend the city or county do to address the anti-API hate that we're seeing today?
That's a tough question for me. You know, I told you I wasn't really interested in addressing that issue because I don't feel personally qualified to really address that. I really wanted to talk about the association more and what they should do to help their employees and the original goals of that. So I prefer not to address that question, if you don't mind. I think the Board of Supervisors have already addressed that. The President has addressed that. So anyway, give me another question.
Go ahead and talk about some of the challenges and any of the other questions. You know, why did you join? What made you decide to become president? You know, what are the challenges that you saw?
Yeah, that's appropriate for me. You know, when I was at the city, you know, I started early. I'm also foreign born in Japan, and I came here when I was 10 years old, just like Jackie. And I was good in math, but you know, I spoke a foreign language. I wrote a foreign language. I didn't know English. I learned my English a lot by watching TV. I know a lot of people watch TV and the YouTube to learn their language. I think that's how the kids are learning English nowadays. But I wanted to understand what was going on TV. And so I actually really did. I didn't take English as a second language in school. I just immersed right into elementary school in the 5th grade. They dropped me a year. I was supposed to go into the 6th grade, but I went into the 5th grade, but I didn't know what was going on. So like I said, I watched TV and I learned English. But when I became a city employee, you know, I was a good engineer. I went to UCLA, and I realized, and what I was hearing from my bosses was, you're a good engineer, you know, you're a good employee, but you don't have good communication skills. And I think that's what a lot of, I think Jackie pointed that out, you know, that because you're a foreigner, English is your second language. I'm still having problem with English. It's not that easy to be a good communicator. It's a skill, right? So I know that our association emphasized in training, improving communication skills. We go to school and we get great grades and we do good work in our respective fields. But what we're lacking, and what I noticed among Asians, was the ability to communicate efficiently and effectively. Most people have that problem anyway, but I noticed that more among the Asians. So those are the kind of skills that I try to encourage that our city employees develop. In addition to networking, you know, when you network, you got to communicate. And the other thing that was very important that I recognized was our body language. Our body language, when you compare ourselves to the Blacks or the Hispanics or the Caucasians, our body language is much more, I don't know, more polite or subservient type of gestures and things that people looked at as weakness, and not a strong leader type of, you know, the way we walked, the way we talked. And so I think we needed to learn the skills on improving our body language in addition to our verbal skills and in our communication skills. And the other thing that I noticed was, I remember my boss told me when I was in the private sector, before I went back to the city after I got my master's, was that, you know, as an engineer, I didn't know how to communicate effectively in writing. So I know that in our association, we try to teach people how to improve their communication, writing communication skills. You know, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, you know, learn how to write well. And that's one thing I think we noticed that was deficient among the Asians. Because it was a second language, they didn't write that well. They didn't speak well, they didn't write well. Their body language was awkward. So those are all the things that we try to train or teach our members. Our members were, many that joined us, you know, wanted some help in able to promote within the organization that they belong to. Many were engineers and accountant types. They were good with numbers, but not necessarily with people, especially upper management and outside. And you know, I tell you, I when I was at UCLA, the Asian American Studies Center was founded in '69. I was one of the original 30 people that helped to found the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. The reason we founded that organization was because the Blacks and Hispanics had already established their Asian American study, their own study center, and I think Les pointed out that. You know, that there was a political influence in establishing the Employees Association, Asian Employees Association, but I think the Blacks and Hispanics were already established. And I know that when I was a president, Sam Sperling encouraged me to become a leader in the organization. And Sam was connected to both the Blacks and the Hispanic Employees Association. He wanted us to work as a group to be a powerhouse to make sure that the city officials knew who we were, as Asians, as Hispanics, as Blacks. But when we work together, you know, we're more powerful, right? And that's why I think it was important for us to develop ourselves, but also to improve our network among each other, and to also get to know the general managers of all the city departments. You know, we invite them to our functions, as well as all the council members and the mayor, each and every time that we had our functions at the Bradley Tower and or other rotunda at City Hall and other places. You know, we always try to invite the public officials to our functions so they knew that our existence, that we were valuable to the city, but that we were also leaders. And personally, I think I became president because Sam encouraged me, but more than that, because I think I wanted to develop my own personal leadership skills, as well as to help others. And I tell you, as you move up through the ranks, politics gets involved, and you have politics is the relationship between people. And I want to tell you, you know, I got introduced as a planning chief, not a plan. What was I? Chief of transportation programs. Actually, I spent 8 years as assistant general manager. And politics does play a role as you move up in the ranks in the city. I was fired as assistant general manager when the new mayor that came in brought in a general manager that wanted to have her own organization. And I know that the general manager before that had to leave town because of the new mayor threatened to fire him, so he retired. So politics plays a role as you move up in the ranks of your organization. So you need to, and you know, even the top Asian at the city had a problem with the mayor. You know, he had to use his political connection to stay in power, and then he was able to go to the county. You know, so I mean, it's a very dangerous place for upper management of organizations in the city. And I know my friends at Metro experienced the same thing. When politics affects you, even though you're the best and the most talented manager, politics plays a role when you get up into upper management. So we need to train our people to be properly networked so that you could withstand the storm of the politics. I guess I wasn't smart enough, so I got demoted. And so I said, I can't stay here, so I resigned. But I reverted back to my civil service position, which protected me, which is great. And, you know, I love the Civil Service Commission. And, you know, I think Henry was talking about, you know, the Civil Service Commission developed by the Chinese, you know, it picks the best, the most talented person to be promoted up. But nowadays, you get your job because of politics. You know, the new mayors want to bring in supposedly the best and the brightest in the field. So they bring people from all over the country, or they interview them anyway, and they bring it into our organization, which changes the culture of that organization. It's not always good for city government to do that. I wish they had a policy of, you know, promoting within, and that really, I think, is better for the city government. And but anyway, I don't want to take up any more time, but those are some of my concerns. And I know, I'm sorry I didn't answer the question that was originally asked, but like I said, I don't feel qualified to answer that. And I wanted to be on the panel to try to help the city employees. This AAPI thing is something that we've had as a ethnic minority have had to handle, you know, for a long time. It continues, and we need to stand together to help each other.
Yeah,
And,
thank you,
the
Janine.
best thing is to educate ourselves about what's going on.
Yeah, no, and I think you know, all the responses that we've had from our panelists today and our speakers, you know, and our other speakers who will be talking later on. I mean, I think you guys bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I really, you know, this is definitely a video that I'm hopeful that, you know, our members, both LACEAAA and the LACEAAs, as well as, you know, new members we're recruiting, the AAPI community and both our agencies can watch and understand kind of what the foundation that you guys have built and what we're trying to continue to build. I'd like to move along now and turn this back to Truck to continue with our program. Truck?
Great. Thank you so much, Eddie. And thank you to all of our speakers. Today is meant to also be a wonderful cultural celebration of our diverse community. And we have the benefit of messages and performances and films produced by the county's Cambodian Association, the county's Chinese Association, and the county's Filipino Employees Association. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
Greeting. On behalf of the Los Angeles County Cambodian Employee Association, we are honored to join our brothers and sisters of the API associations and communities to celebrate Asian Heritage Month. We want to take this opportunity to honor the many great leaders that contribute to the success of this great nation. Because of your sacrifice and your contribution, you have given our generation, especially the women of color, endless opportunity to succeed. Please continue to be kind to one another. Thank you.
Hi everyone, on behalf of CLAC.
Happy AAPI Heritage Month.
Yay!
Yay!
雪花悄悄离去，彼此间都把真情埋在心底，爱的呼唤踩着杨梅。
Wonderful. And before we get started on our next spot, I wanted to go ahead and thank the county's Cambodian, Chinese, and Filipino associations for their performances and messages. I'd also like to acknowledge that our assessor, Jeffrey Prang, has joined us today, as well as our elected official, Mike Fong. So thank you so much for joining us today. With that, I'm going to turn to you, Annie.
Thank you, Truck. It is my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, Janelle Hu. She is with the Asian American Advancing Justice Los Angeles. Advancing Justice LA is the nation's largest legal and civil rights organizations for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Founded in 1983 as the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, Advancing Justice LA serves more than 15,000 individuals and organizations every year. Through direct services, impact litigation, policy advocacy, leadership development, and capacity building, Advancing Justice LA focuses on the most vulnerable members of the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities, while also building a strong voice for civil rights and social justice. Janelle Hu is their Director of Individual Giving and Corporate Relationships. Prior to the advocacy work with Advancing Justice LA, Janelle worked as a lawyer, management consultant, and nonprofit director. She holds a law degree and a master's in public policy from Georgetown University, received a BA from my alma mater, UCLA, and more importantly, is one of my dearest friends. I first met Janelle through my husband when she was looking to move from the East Coast back to Southern California. And our first time meeting, we talked until 3 o'clock in the morning because we had so much in common. As if she has no additional time, or as if she has lots of free time on her hand, in addition to her day job with Advancing Justice LA, Janelle is also co-owner of Wolfie's Hot Chicken in Highland Parks. If you're ever out in that area, I highly recommend a fun evening eating great food in a wonderful ambiance that's socially distant and COVID safe. So with much ado, I really welcome Janelle Hu to our audience.
Thank you so much, Annie, and for the association board, many founders here who I've gotten a chance to listen to today, and the members for inviting me. As Annie mentioned, I did have a stint where I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for 14 years, and so much of the advice that was shared today reminded me of my days in official politics when I worked for the House of Representatives and the Department of State. I actually am a recovering election attorney, so I probably work with some of the county folks who, if you're with, you know, the Office of the Registrar, and now as a small business owner with the health, you know, the health permitting process and business permitting process and whatnot. So I feel like my life is intertwined with perhaps many of you today who are the ears and eyes of what's happening on the ground in the community. And I just feel like today is really we're at a crossroads, especially since we know we're about to embark on opening up after being in a year full of safer at home orders. And we've talked about, you heard from Mr. Wu earlier about the rise in anti-Asian hate. And I think the important thing that we wanted to share is what are organizations doing to address this issue, and then what also can we as individuals and even our own organizations do to help ameliorate this issue. And so I just want to acknowledge, I think Mr. Ng, Honorable Mike Ng, is here today, and he is one of the founding kitchen cabinet members of Advancing Justice LA, well then APALC. And you know, we know these issues of hate and discrimination are not new, right? And even our founding 38 years ago, in 1983, our founder, Stuart Kuehl, Mr. Ng, and some others really jumped in the wake of the murder of Vincent Chin, who was bludgeoned to death by a baseball bat from two out-of-work white auto workers who were really angry at Japanese Americans taking their jobs. And unfortunately, they did not see a day in jail. And we recognize that that was not just instrumental because it helped birth a movement of support for Vincent Chin and his family to make sure that his crime was vindicated, but really a whole civil rights uprising. We feel like, let's acknowledge that even last year with George Floyd and the litany of murders that we saw really has heightened the awareness of what is happening in our community. And politics, certainly, I think James was saying, you know, politics is woven through a thread throughout all aspects of our lives. And we know the highest elected officials do set the stage for creating an environment where this kind of hostility is almost invited, right? And so as Advancing Justice LA, we recognize that there's so much work to be done. And even though we have seen over 7,000 reported incidents of anti-Asian hate and discrimination through the various trackers that exist, we know that's only the tip of the iceberg, right? There are, and I know dozens of accounts where my own friends and family have told me what has happened to them. Our founder, our new CEO, Connie Chung Jo, shares how her own father-in-law, who is a decorated Vietnam War vet, walked down the streets of Alhambra and was hurled epithets. And he's he has medals of honor, and he fought valiantly for our country. He's a Chinese American and still despised in the streets of our own neighborhoods. And he didn't report. And there are so many people who don't either want to report or feel like they are not in a position to want to report. And many of these incidents that we know are happening don't even rise to the level of crime. And so there's been a question around what can we do to help these individuals who've been impacted by discrimination and hate. And so Advancing Justice LA has stepped in to provide a whole host of resources and support. And I just wanted to share these with you with an eye toward, what is it that we as individuals can do? And so I invite you to know about the multilingual helplines that we have. I think the foresight of our founders instituting these helplines have actually been in multiple Asian languages. Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Tagalog, and Thai are the ones that we are staffing currently. And many inquiries that come in from our community members are really trying to figure out what can they do. What kind of resources exist to support these families. There are victim services support, and we let them know about both the financial and mental health and social services that are accessible for these families. There's obviously, when legal remedies exist and the families choose to pursue them, we do have lawyers at the ready to help support them through that process. One of the things that we did in the early period where we started hearing more incidents of hate and discrimination is bring on a full-time social worker. So in fact, just recently we received a call from a Korean American elderly senior who shared how a year ago there were people who threw rocks at her. She called into our helplines that the people were throwing rocks at her, and a year later still suffering from post-traumatic stress and mental distress. And so what we've been able to do through our social worker is to provide access to culturally competent and linguistically competent services for her to kind of work through some of this angst and anxiety. These are services that we think are incredibly important to lift up to our communities, and we even advocate for. As Annie had mentioned, we engage in a host of policy and advocacy initiatives, and one of those is to work to pursue the passage of now AG Bonta's bill, which provides increased support and services for families who have fallen victim to hate and discrimination, and then also provide access to some of the financial services and support that, even though an individual may not have an incident rise to the level of crime or have reported an incident in the community to the law enforcement, that they still may have access to these resources. And I think that's important because we all know, even in the midst of COVID, when the only time we're leaving our home is really for the most instrumental and necessary activities, when people are, being bludgeoned in the street, being bullied and discriminated against. We received calls where there's a survivor of domestic violence who was told by her landlord that she had to leave her building because they didn't want any COVID in their building. These are people who are, as Annie mentioned, these are the most vulnerable individuals in our community who don't know what resources exist. And so that's why we've encouraged everyone to call us. And if you or someone you know who might be impacted, everything is confidential, and we could support them in multiple Asian languages. And if they're not in the languages that I had shared from our helplines, we have access to get that translation and interpretation support. One of the things that we think that not just our API community members would benefit from is the bystander intervention training that we're hosting. And we encourage all individuals, our allies, and we were talking about building allyship across our ethnic community cohorts. Certainly our Black, Latino, LGBTQ, and the whole rainbow of supporters and kind of individuals within our orbit would benefit from the bystander intervention training, which essentially gives us tools in the moment to ask ourselves, if we see something happening, what can we do? For example, can we go in and maybe like drop something on the ground and our keys or something and distract somebody from, engaging in that behavior, or documenting from afar. We're not sure everyone would feel comfortable intervening personally in an incident, but certainly documenting something through our cell phones and trying to make sure that we know what's happening in the moment, so that if that individual wants to pursue support through law enforcement or other means, that they have the record available. So this bystander intervention training is free. We encourage anyone to sign up, and I will share the link in the chat. You can find that from our website. I think somebody already dropped that link in the chat. And I think what's important is to go through this training to understand in various scenarios, if this happened, what might I do? If that happened, what might I do? And I think that it's incredibly instructive to kind of go through those exercises. I don't even know if I shared this with Annie, but I think, I myself had been in an incident where in the moment I thought, what would I do? Something was happening to me though. And I thought, why didn't I think the 5 Ds and just pull my, phone out to document what was happening? And, so I think that the bystander intervention training, it's free. If your organization or your agency wanted to have its own private training, I could link you up with our teammate to help you provide these skills and kind of strategies to your office. But you can find those training days that are available on our website, and we're going to host a number of other trainings through June and the rest of the year. So I encourage you to look there. The other thing is we have a PSA that highlights this training, and it was narrated by Ken Jong and illustrated by James Yang, beautiful art. And this PSA is a great way to share with your office, your friends and family, your colleagues about the importance of signing up. So certainly if you feel compelled, you can do that. We have social media assets on our website that if you wanted to stand up, rise up against hate and talk about this. What people realize, I think, or people sometimes need to be reminded is, as this issue has not been new to our community, we've had the Chinese Inclusion Act, we've had the incarceration of Japanese Americans, the post 9/11, onslaught of violence against the South Asian community, and even now, we need to be raising awareness and sharing with people how we have been fighting this battle for many decades, for nearly centuries. And so I think that's what is important in terms of building solidarity with other communities and the importance of bridge building. We are truly at a point where our Connie Changzhou, our CEO, and Robin Tuma of the LA Human Relations Commission, they are co-chairing this LA versus Hate initiative, where civil rights leaders from across the spectrum are standing up for one another in the effort to combat hate against not just the API community, but hate is not acceptable for any community. And so what we know is right now we might see the onslaught here with Asians in this moment, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. And unfortunately, there are new targets with every wind shift. And so these leaders have come together to really strategize how to support one another in that moment. And of course, if you want to be part of this, or if you know individuals who'd be aptly suited to help serve in that capacity, I know that it's always great to have the strategy and the support from across different communities to stand up in solidarity for one another. Because while we're all standing up to combat hate for APIs now, we want to be able to be there for the other communities who are facing these issues in the future too. So I really wanted to share with you just a host of ways that you can help support, share about our helplines, our services. There are ways to lift up our voice and what services are available through the social media, slides, and our bystander intervention PSA. Of course, you can give to organizations on the ground that are doing this kind of work, whether it's to Advancing Justice LA or others who are, chaperoning seniors from place to place, because so many of our seniors are worried. Sign up to be a chaperone or help support organizations in a way that you feel comfortable. These are ways that certainly we can all contribute to combating this issue.
Thanks so much, Janelle. I think you hit so many of the points that had questions come up during the chat. I do want to give people just a couple of minutes if they do have specific questions to Janelle that I can read off. But I think that the resources that you have given us is so helpful, because this, for me, I see that the Asian community is actually very politically active, but they're not necessarily always politically active on the things that impact every Asian Pacific Islander community. And I'll give you an example. My parents are registered to vote here, and they're registered to vote in Taiwan. Their friends and family, their friends and then my other extended family members will fly from all over the world back to Taiwan to be able to cast a vote, because they see the importance of that vote, and they are willing to vote for things that are important here. But you see that there is a definite strength in conviction in the way they act. And so being able to use these resources to channel that passion for causes is so important. So I think there are already a lot of people posting the links to the holler back training for bystanders, posting the link to your organization. If there are just 3 things that you think that our participants can do, can you give us just 3 simple things that they can do so that they can essentially, because we wanted your portion to be a point in which not only are we embracing the reality that discrimination and anti-hate towards Asian exists, but that we're empowered to do something. And so there's so many things that people can be involved with, but what are 3 simple things that they can do?
Yeah, I think that one thing is to listen to the people around us who, if they have been fighting an issue like this, where they personally have been struggling through anti-Asian hate and discrimination, listen and let them know that our services exist. And you have the link to our organization, or I'm sure, Annie, I can share, we can email the participants who are attending today. So tell them about our services, that we have in language, culturally appropriate help and support. And we can provide both kind of mental health and social services referrals, as well as providing access to additional kind of resources available to individuals impacted by hate and discrimination, both on the social services side, but also the legal side. So let them know, let them know that our organization exists and that we can help. The second thing is really signing up for those bystander intervention trainings, because you never know, as we get back out in the community, what we might see and what we might be able to help support. And not just you and attending personally, but you could tell your friends and family about these trainings. One of the interesting things that we're going to be working on this summer is fine-tuning this training. I think a couple of you have said that you've attended it and thought it was great, but we're fine-tuning this training for the youth-based context. As schools go back into in-person learning, our friends, family, our own sons and daughters are going back into the schools. We know that bullying has been an incredibly, that was the first case that we had seen in February of 2020, before we even had the safer at home order. There was a young high school student who was punched in the face 20 times, blamed by his classmates for having COVID and bringing COVID to America. I mean, that was the first case that existed. Schools are going to be a place where we are concerned there may be an increased elevation of tension around this issue. So we're going to fine tune by center intervention for the youth-based context. So if there are any of the folks who are involved in the education context and might be able to help us get these trainings into the schools, this would be great too. The third thing is really just supporting organizations like ours, whether it's through volunteering or, you know, contributing financially, or even bringing friends to help us spread the word. I mean, these are very simple ways where you can be a part of the solution.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janelle. You might be seeing a lot of the participants this weekend at your restaurant. We've been getting a lot of inquiries to try out Wolfie's hot chicken. So if everybody just comes and says hi, I'm sure she's going to be overwhelmed with support.
Yes, I don't usually wear both hats in one of these speaking engagements, but certainly yes, we are. I will say a full caveat that it's a plant-based chicken shop. So, you know, my husband, we make the chicken from scratch. It's cholesterol-free, friends. And I was a carnivore for over 40 years, and I think this is the best chicken sandwich I've ever had, and I've tried them all. So come on down to Highland Park on York, and you can, we can talk more about chicken or the Anti-Asian Discrimination Initiative and how you can get involved.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Janelle. We are now moving to our final cultural performance. This performance was done specifically for our event today by the children of Ted Powell, a longtime county employee at the Internal Services Department, ISD. This is Connor and Dylan Powell. Fantastic. And that again is Dylan and Connor Powell. They live in the mighty 5th District of Supervisor Bargers. With that said, we now move to one of everyone's one of the favorite events of any event, free door prizes. We'd like to thank Arlene Herrera at the Employees Club of California for the prizes that were submitted today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put everyone on gallery screen, and we've got 6 prizes to give away. I'm going to call out your name, and when I call out your name, if you could unmute and say that you're here and that you'll accept the prize, that would be absolutely wonderful. So with that said, our first prize is a C's $25 card and 1 Honey Baked Ham gift card for $25. So let's see here. I want to be able to screen. Our first winner is going to be Linda Choi. Are you on? Will you accept this prize?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, fantastic. Congratulations, Linda. Our second prize is also going to be another C's $25 gift card and 1 Honey Baked Ham gift card for $25. And our next winner is going to be Muriel G. Muriel G, are you on and will you accept this prize?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for this very informative event.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. All right, our next winner, Laura Casillas, are you on? You are the winner of 2 Adults Catalina Express passes. Are you on?
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm on. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Okay, we've got our next prize, 2 AMC movie pack tickets. Do we have Cannery Pung on?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, our next prize is 2 Regal movie packs. Obviously, California is lifting its restrictions on June 15th, so you'll be able to freely go back to the movies. I would like to call out Me Suck You Harlan. Are you in? Are you on? Me? Me, I can't hear you. Do you want to unmute yourself if you're on? Okay, me, I'm gonna have to move on. Our next winner is gonna be Miranda.
In the chat box that she was here.
Oh, okay, fantastic, me. Congratulations. You are the winner of the 2 Regal movie passes. Now, our last big prize is 2 SeaWorld one-day adult admission tickets, courtesy of the Employees Club of California. And the winner will be Riza Melendrez. Are you on?
I'm lucky. Oh my God. Yes, I am here.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And again, we want to thank our sponsor today, the Employees Club of California, for these wonderful door prizes. Thank you so much. Eddie, back to you.
Thank you, Truck. Just to let everyone know also that if you're a city or county employee, we are able to join the Employees Club as members to receive discounted tickets by going through various affinity groups for, and then there's an application for it. So I believe, I'm not sure if Employees Club has that information on their website, but you could always reach out to either LACEAAA or LACEAAA, and we could give you more information. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us in this program. You know, this is something that many of us volunteers have labored through for about a month now. When we first came up with the idea of putting this together, you know, we had hoped that the COVID restrictions would have been lifted, but you know, given the restrictions, you know, we figured putting on a virtual event would be the best thing to do. I think this has been just a great combination of people from both organizations. I want to call out on behalf of the LACEAAA volunteers, really, besides, you know, Elizabeth Hahn and Truck Moore, who everyone has seen on this video, on this presentation. You know, there's been several people behind the scenes who have really helped. We've had Jody Chen, She helped build the timeline video, as well as other templates. The beautiful flyer and the background for the PowerPoints is something she designed. We have Nemanja and Matt Liang. They've also helped out. If you notice the spotlighting and the scene changes and the slides, both of those gentlemen have been great at the background responsibilities. Joanna De La Cuesta has supported us behind the scenes for LACEAAA and just ensuring that, well, she's also our treasurer, so she's going to be paying for a lot of the additional products that we're probably going to buy from Zoom to make sure we have a great programming in the future. And again, to our sponsors as well, Employees Club of California, APCF, and Asian Americans Advancing Justice. Annie?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I think that our partnership with the various organizations have really benefited the members of both LACEAAA and LACEAAA. And as Eddie and I have worked together in one past event, and we probably will continue to work together, I can see that we have a lot of synergies between the city employees and the county employees. A lot of the issues that the past board member panelists have mentioned, just parallels each other in terms of various types of discrimination, the efforts of networking, the importance of being able to have a voice and to communicate, to be able to promote and to be in a position of influence and leadership in the city and the county is so critical. And so I'm really glad that we are able to continue to work together on events that could help our respective memberships in their personal, professional careers. Putting this together was not an easy thing. The boards have worked really hard. Some of those that have put in a lot of extra hours on nighttime Zoom test runs. We've done several of those. We've had a lot of brainstorming sessions, but I specifically want to highlight a few individuals that have really gone above and beyond in this venture of wanting our membership to be empowered in the midst of what is going on with the API community. And so Betty worked with Jody on the timeline. She started looking at research so that we as an organization can educate our members as to what has been happening historically, that the anti-Asian hate is not a new thing. It's been prevalent. And so we just now have the media attention and the social media presence to be able to really highlight them on a very national level. Behind the scene, we had a lot of help from the tech perspective from Lily and Dong and Christine. Irene and Janice worked to network with a lot of our officials. You saw Janice working really hard with the facilitation of the panels, and also E as our coordinator of events. She really pulled together a lot of the meetings and getting us going with the planning, and Lou also with connecting us with the retirees who are still very active in API issues. And so we're really, really blessed to have a whole list of people working to help advance the causes of getting API issues in the forefront of people who are making decisions and who are able to do something about it. And I think that this is a very good opportunity to put in a plug that if you are a LACEAAA member or a LACEAAA member and you see these events as being really valuable and informative and educational and you've benefited from it, volunteer to serve on the board, volunteer to be a volunteer, because we're always looking for members within our membership who are willing to take that one extra level of step to be a leader within our associations. If you're a young member and you want to gain leadership skills, this is a great way to do that, to work collaboratively with other members that have a shared passion, who you can gain a lot of project management skills, you can gain a lot of communication skills. This will help you in your career as well. And so this networking opportunity that everybody speaks about, it starts with getting involved and being willing to volunteer and to work within the organization with very supportive and like-minded people. And so I'm going to enter the email address for LACEAAA at Gmail. And then if anybody is interested, please email us and say that you're willing to volunteer.
Thanks, Ania. I'll put my email out there as well, and I think I've done it in another message, but
And then lastly, I'll just say, you know, there's a lot of very valuable resources that were shared today. There was a presentation that Janelle had, a PowerPoint slide deck, and the video that if you have friends that might be interested, we'll forward all of that information on to those that have participated in today's event so that you can have this as a resource to share with other people and also to continue to kind of advance the work that we're trying to do with LACEAAA and LACEAAA.
Right. And we'll, like I said in the beginning, LACEAAA has a YouTube channel. We'll post this on our channel so you could rewatch it again. There are some other videos that we have on there. We're going to be producing a lot more in the future. I think, you know, this mechanism to reach out to people and get information out through virtual videos, I think is definitely something that we will continue to use. Besides also creating some more in-person events. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Happy APAM month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.